Fifth wife meant she lost her head too, right? Yeah. So they stayed here during his reign. So sometime in the 1500s, they stayed here, not soon after the house was built. And it was enlarged in 1680 by Sir William Ellis. Then George Buckingham finally received it in 1780. Robert, Earl of Buckingham's daughter, married Frederick John, Earl of Ripon, who was the first Earl of Ripon, who happened to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for 5 months. Fire destroyed the house in about 1830, and another was built in the same place in 1841. Now that plat was commissioned by the first Earl of Ripon, and it's incorporated into the wall, so he would have been the one that was living in the hall when it was rebuilt. So this house has only been standing here since 1841, not 1530. Yeah. But I would imagine the cellars are the original, because the fire doesn't normally get down into the cellars underground, does it? So I'd imagine they would have built the house on top of the old cellars and everything. Yeah. The first time the hall was used as any form of hospital was during the First World War. A family in the village by the name of Hodgson, Hodgson. Okay. It's a funny one, isn't it? So they owned the house, and they moved out of the house so that the American soldiers could use it for their offices. So the Americans used it for their offices as a convalescent home for those officers that were injured during the First World War. And that was from 1917 to 1919. Then the hall was sold to William Dennis of Curtin, which is near Boston. But he passed away 6 years later, and his son James moved into the hall. So this was 1925. Now James was a farmer, and he grew potatoes on his land. So Lincolnshire is famous for potatoes, isn't it? Those potatoes were transported from a train network that they had on the farm. They had their own little rail tracks and everything. And those potatoes were taken from the farm to Lincoln, across to the Newark Road where the Smith's Crisp factory was, and it provided the potatoes for all the crisps they made.
So is the railway still on?
The railway's been lifted, but Beeswax Dyson, that now own the land, have actually got some of the tracks, and they've put it in one of their buildings as a bit of a museum, yeah. If you know what I'm saying. Anything they've found that's old, they've put plaques up near them and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of nice that they've been doing that, so it's preserving that bit of history. But those train tracks came into play during the Second World War, because in 1940 the Air Ministry, as it was known then, purchased 200 acres of land, and that included the hall and all of its gardens and the land behind it. So they purchased the land, and initially they used it for a school of nursing, because their hospital is at RAF Cranwell. Now, the Americans joined the war in 1942, and in 1944 they came here, and the Air Ministry said, you know, we've got a bit of land there in the hall, and you can use it as a hospital. So it was the Americans that built the Nissen huts, that if you look at old photographs from that time period, you'll see rows and rows and rows of Nissen huts. They were the original buildings on the hospital site. And they used tents, and if you're fortunate enough to look at the right photographs, you'll see stretchers on the fields as well, because RAF Metheringham is no longer a camp anymore, is it? But RAF Metheringham flew in the soldiers that were injured, and they used the trains from the farm to bring them over here.
Oh,
okay, so that's the kind of thing they did. But of course the war ended the following year, in 1945, so the Americans left in 1946. The RAF took over, and because Lincolnshire was just full of Air Force camps, RAF Cranwell for a hospital wasn't sufficient. So they thought, we've got this land here, Americans were using it as a hospital, so they designated it number 1 RAF Hospital Nocton Hall, and they built up their hospital on here. They used the hall as the officers' mess and the accommodation for the more senior female officers. Okay, and I think the male officers, there was accommodation. They had large detached houses on the edge of where all the married quarters was, where everybody else went. So the hall was used throughout the time the RAF was here. So in 1946 they added 4 wards. Then in 1947 they received the first patients. Back then, military hospitals were only used by military personnel, but they soon started to allow civilians to use it. So you've got a lot of people that were born here, that are local, or were local and everything. So for many years they served both military and civilians. In 1954 they added surgical, ophthalmic, which is eye clinic, and dental clinic to the site. 1957 they added a maternity wing. 1962 they added twin operating theatres, and in 1966 they added a neuropsychiatric centre. This is where the paranormal comes in, isn't it? Because wherever there's a bit of bit of psychiatric kind of people losing their minds tend to be the ones that, if they die that way, tend to be the ones that stay around. Hence why some of them are a bit strange.
See, so that's where I got the psychiatric hospital from.
So St John's, we've been to St John's.
Tried getting in there, didn't you?
Yeah, because you can't get in there now. But I would never buy a house over there, seriously.
I would never buy a flat. I've seen some of the flats that they've made.
Yeah, because that's where we bumped into that group of kids, wasn't it, that had just been chased
that
out
place
by
always
security
gives me the heebie-jeebies. It always did as a child and does now.
We tried going.
Oh, we tried twice.
We tried twice.
It's a shame that the owners don't allow it. It would be nice one last time before they finish building.
Yeah, but I don't know what I'd find.
Well,
That's the problem.
Yeah, the
Well,
security
we'd
guard
get some,
was like, oh, well, if I let you in, I could lose my job. And it's like, well, just pretend you don't know we're in there. We'll
They can't.
We'll keep the lights off.
Because you've got to remember how many... I mean, I get emails and I get messages all the time going, especially since the tour started. Can we do an overnight, with paranormal? The owners won't allow overnight simply because we've got the care home there, and there are residents that their houses are backed onto the site, and they just
So was
draw the line.
that part of this site then, that they've then built the care home and houses onto, or not?
The care home is part of the old stables to the hall. That one is. That's completely separate. That's a completely different company, and they decided to turn those into a...
So if this wasn't allowed to be knocked down, then why was the stables allowed to be knocked down?
It's not.
They're not. They renovated it.
That's been the house for a long time. It's been a care home for a long time.
It's been renovated as well. It's actually original brickwork.
All they've done is change the inside.
It's a very big stairwell, huh?
They had 200 acres of land. That's a big... They had a lot of land with this hall. So, let me see. So, we're in 1940, 1966, aren't we? So, by this point, they had so many different departments that it really was a big, growing hospital. And at its peak, RAF Nocton had 740 beds, which is a significantly large hospital, even to today's standards. They had the cutting-edge facilities, so they were up to date with everything, and they out of the 6 or 7 military hospitals that we had in the UK, RAF Nocton was considered the best one out of all of them. And people that served here served in some of the others, and they always say Nocton was the most favourite post. It really was a great place to work. Now, we're getting close to the end of the 70s, early 80s now, and things are changing. The camps were closing all over Lincolnshire. There weren't as many personnel anymore. Even now, we've cut numbers so much now with our armed forces, because warfare's fought so differently now. So the decision was made on the 31st of March 1983 to close the hospital. They literally mothballed it, just covered it up and walked away. But within months, the Americans were back, this time the United States Air Force, and they leased the hospital for 10 years. So from 1983 to 1993, the camp was run by the Americans. Things were escalating in the Gulf. Okay, so what kind of years were you all born?
89.
So you're all young. I'm beginning to feel old. I remember the first Gulf War. It was around about 91, 92. Okay. Things were in the Middle East were really starting to go, and there was this threat of chemical warfare and biological warfare and things like that. And so the Americans, being Americans as they are, were preparing for that. So they wanted this as their wartime hospital. So they had up to 1,300 medical staff here, and they were preparing for all those casualties they thought were going to come from the Gulf. Now the RAF was still here working, but it was under the actual station was under the American command. Fortunately, the war did not generate all the kind of casualties they were going to have, and they only ended up receiving about 35. So they had a lot of medical personnel here for not many patients. So the hospital, they all left in '93, went back off to America, and in 1995 the RAF, or the MOD, sold the land and the hospital into private hands, and that's when Leader Properties purchased it, with the intention, they're a developing company, so with the intention of hoping to get planning permission for homes and things like that. The last use of the hall was a residential care home. So that care home couldn't have been there at the time because they wouldn't have two side by side. They extended the hall out back, so it's kind of like prefab kind of buildings at the back there, which have been burned or destroyed. They soon ran into financial difficulty because anybody that takes on a house this size, it literally, you might as well just write a blank check because it drains your finances. So they went bust and left in about 96, 97, that kind of time period. And then it was sold, and Leader Properties again purchased the hall. So once again, you had the land back in the ownership of one company, but it was significantly diminished. There were 77 acres in total, as opposed to the 200. Because some of it they built the married quarters on, and they were sold off in the late 80s. Like a lot of married quarters all over the country were sold off around that time period. They put in planning permission for when they first bought the hall. They put in planning permission to have it converted into flats, to apartments. Now, with it being Grade 2 listed, they wouldn't have changed the outside. It would have just been the inside. But for whatever reason, they were refused planning permission. I don't know why. Unfortunately, whatever they've tried to do, nothing seems to happen. And then November 2004, a fire broke out. It was unoccupied. Nearly 70 firefighters came to put the fire out, and they couldn't save it. The house went up that fast. When they investigated afterwards, they found that it had been started in more than one room. So it was it was an arson attack.
Yeah.
And contrary to what the locals believe, it was not the owners. Okay, they did not set fire to their own house, because that's not how you get planning permission.
No.
I saw the article for the fire. There's an article on Google about the fire.
Let's start walking.
Do you want any bottle or not?
You're not gonna
Worry about it.
come here.
Yeah.
No, I'll put your voice over for it.
One sec then. That's going to stop anyone getting to wire fence if they get through or over the
Put in
fence?
the history, it says Knockton on it. What I'm saying.
I can cut that audio bit out. That's easy.
Blank it out. Helicopter.
It's not.
It is. It's a VTOL. That's a no, that's a VTOL. You can see the blades on it. They twist like that.
What is it?
But don't look. No, it's a VTOL. I'll show you a VTOL. I'll show you a VTOL when we get home.
Those ones that have got like.
It's a vertibird. Takes it straight off,
Why is it
straight
got
up, and that thing
Does it go up like that?
goes up, and then the blades twist.
Yeah, I've seen those.
We're recording.
Is it?
Yeah.
So why is
What they call a vertibird.
Because it's on the screensaver.
Oh, well, why don't you do that? Oh, going this way. Nothing else is going to far. So what? Is that where we're going?
I'm not sure.
This is the whole hospital.
Yeah.
Hey, the whole thing. This is the hospital now.
Yeah.
I don't think it goes with my outfit. Can I have a red one?
I would choose to bring a hat, wouldn't I?
I know, I got Sky kicking off. I want to go. I was like, no, you've got to be 18. She was like, can't you just ask? I was like, no. She was like, but I'm nearly there. I was like, Sky, you're 13.
How old is she?
13. I was like, yeah, you know, I said, even if you were 17, you still won't be allowed to go. You've got to be 18.
I'm just going to put a hoodie on because it's starting to get chilly. It's going to be cold.
I'll be alright.
Do on
He's
his
got
shoulder.
enough meat
That's
on him to keep him warm.
Ooh, you got enough gob to keep us all warm.
The joys of family.
Where have you come from? Lincoln?
Doncaster.
Oh, Doncaster.
And where comes Scunthorpe?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's an urban explorer group in Scunthorpe called Dirty Trent.
Don't mention them.
They're hidden on the outside, a lot of them are, you can't see because of vegetation. But as winter comes and the leaves starts to open up a bit. But we will be going down the whole of that central
You're
corridor.
left out, love. Is anyone not recording?
Other camera, dear.
Oh no, she's taking a photo of herself with a
Oh, I thought you taking it.
Oh, I forgot my hat.
I thought you was recording then.
No, it's took a selfie in my hat.
Plastic thing.
Oh,
Yeah, just
Clips back
here.
in.
That has to be clipped into that bottom one there. You have to kind of, it's awkward. There's just the
Does
one
it-
that does
does
it
it
all
matter?
the time. Sorry?
Does
Oh,
it matter?
Well, if it was comfortable.
It's you on the head then, yeah.
Well, no, 'cause my head's so protected, isn't it?
No.
You kind of have to
It's shock
twist
absorbers.
it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to.
It is awkward, but you'll get there. So
Right,
every time
there we
I
go.
look at that lamppost, I go, ah, you didn't
Yeah.
get me. So it does put a smile on my face. So this place can be depressing because of all the damage it's caused.
Because it's hidden with a tree, that's why it is.
It blends
More
in.
up here in this. But that tree, I mean, it was 11, 12 years ago when the place got stripped.
So
That tree would have
won't-
been a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it got missed. And it is the only one that's left standing. There's some on the outside of the fence. So imagine this place without that fence. It was the Americans that built the fence. When the RAF were here, up until 1983, there was no fence at all around this place. Okay, it was all open. The hall was pristine gardens, steps going down into here, married quarters, all coming in, everything. So the village came. There's a broken one. The village used the facilities. They would come to the cinema here, because they had a cinema here. The children would come to the youth discos on a Friday night. So it was a big
It's a
community.
pigeon.
No,
Now,
I was looking at the building.
it's birds. No fence, but they built a wall. This little wall. And they built it into a semicircle. And it comes all the way out back there. But they also built a hedge, a privet hedge, just the other side of the wall. 25 years without cutting a hedge. This is what happens. Okay, if you look in here, beyond the trees there, that bush
The original.
is the hedge all the way around. Okay, so isn't nature amazing? So if you don't cut your hedge, that's what's going to happen. The reason for the semicircle is that white pole there. That white pole that's collapsed over time was the flagpole. Okay. It's a shame, but it's there still, which is nice. It never got taken. And the flag always flew where the headquarters building was. So that is the station headquarters building right now.
So that's where we're going.
Right, so we're going to have a quick look in there. And I'm going to show you what it looked like in its day. This is what it looked like.
That's a lot different, isn't it?
The Americans replaced the roofs on this camp. They replaced them with the aluminium roofs. They used to all be asbestos roofs. So
see one
the
of the fence
asbestos
posts.
roofs that are, yeah, and that's what these guys are standing on there by the side of the road. You have the rails there. So the road goes to the end where those two trees are. Beautiful cut lawn. I mean, look at that.
So this was all path.
Yeah, this should have
This
been
was
grass.
all road down to where those
They're
posts are
parking
there.
spaces.
Sorry?
They look like the hatch markings.
Yep, yep. And if you look here, they had parking. They had lines there for parking the cars.
So you're now carrying that.
So there's the curb here. Okay. And then it goes all the way down to where those trees are. That's how wide the road
So when
was.
you think that was a fairly big road.
Yeah. But then part of it was parking.
So
This
did
is
they have
parking.
tanks here as well then?
It was a hospital.
Might still have tanks.
They had a fire engine. That's in a museum now. So the road ends here. Then the path begins. Here's that little bridge you saw in the picture. There was a bridge, the two ponds, They used to have a little wall on the bridge.
Your camera's gone off.
It's just on standby apparently. You press aside when it comes back on, but that's why it was doing my head and keep pressing that all the time.
The red writing you see on the wall and on the back corridor there, that was from the asbestos clearance. So every time, when you go around, you'll see buildings that have got
Switch
all
on
those kind of markings on there. It means
I've
that
got spare
building
batteries
was
in
checked
backpack for it.
and cleared of any asbestos that was dangerous during that time when it was stripped.
So it's not graffiti.
It's not graffiti. That is literally to do with the time they were on here doing it. It used to say station headquarters. Can you see the dirt there?
Yeah.
So it says station and then headquarters. That's what's left of the queue. Okay, it was blue plastic like this. This is one of the other letters that's here, just there. Blue plastic with white saying station headquarters. This was the administration building. This is where the station commander office was. This is where people would come and get their pay, etc. So this was a functioning building in that sense. Can you see the windows have got PVC?
Yeah.
The Americans did that. They came from Northern California and they thought, stuff these cold metal windows. I'm putting PVC in. And they did it to this building and the building next to it, which was the guard room, the MP, where the military police were stationed in that room. So for whatever reason, these two buildings, they put PVC in. The glass is all gone. You won't find the glass on the floor, which means when they came to strip the site, all these opportunists, they took the glass. Some of them are broken, but the majority of them, they broke the seal and took the glass as well.
All for the aluminium edge.
No, I think they took the glass. It's probably
Yeah,
worse.
the glass on the edge would have been aluminium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to seal them together.
What,
So,
for the two panes? Oh, it's unbelievable. So I learn something every day. So this building has a carpet in it. Okay, this was the reception. You can see where the radiators used to be, the big fat cast iron radiators on the wall there. So that's the reception. Next door to the reception is the personal assistant to the station commander, their office, and then that end room there was the station commander's office, and all the other rooms were whatever administration kind of things. So have a look around. You will notice that the Americans also put some of their own plugs in as well, so from their own sockets. So they had a transformer, and they're 110, aren't they? And we're 240. So you'll see that around. You'll also find a safe that they left. I'm going to let you look for it because it's more fun that way. So have a look around. Sorry?
It's a treasure bullet.
Yeah, isn't it? So just look around. There's a burnt out chair in that one. A safe used to be encased in there, but it would have been for documents probably.
Like I said, it's probably on standby, but it's still recording.
These desks are over here. So you can see, no glass.
I'm going to go for a nose down this way first. So, oh God, it's where I'm going.
We found it that time. We found 3 safes.
3?
Well, one's a locker. There's that big safe there, which is a proper like vault safe. A little safe up on the wall, and then the lockery thing. What's the surprise? Why is the basma under?
Maybe this was a prison cell.
No, because this was the admin block.
Might just be that they put it on to stop people from getting in.
Yeah.
You know, with them being broken.
Possible, yeah. It's just a bit bang.
We've been in that room.
You've been in all of them. That's one that we put forward to get into the end one with the green chair.
I'm coming!
Close near the bridge, there was just some trees. This was just all clear.
Yeah.
It'd be a hell of a difference, wouldn't it?
A few bigger trees on this side. That's when the Americans were
Did you
here.
find the
This
area,
is
shall I?
when the Americans were here.
Yeah, it's out back.
I need to get more photos in here.
Well, I have quite a few things made up, but I left them in the car because I didn't think we'd be allowed to smoke. Yeah, so.
I suppose you've got an aerial shot in that book, have you?
Not in the book, but there's plenty on the... I've got a map, but not an aerial shot.
Yeah, just an aerial shot when it was in use and stuff like that.
Not when it was in use. You can see, well, you can go on Google Earth and see what it looks
Oh,
like.
you got someone coming?
Should have brought a drone.
Well, one of the new ones would be better.
What?
Should have brought a drone.
I've got a drone.
Cheers.
So do I.
It's got camera and video footage on it. It can record it for us.
So come on.
I was just saying, we'll just fetch it with us.
Well, you've got wartime, I know.
Yes, and I've also got before it was built as well.
No, what about,
And we've got the 1970s.
you've got one for the 1970s aerial?
Yes, and the 80s.
Okay, it'd be nice. You can send them over to me.
There you go.
Padlock don't want to stay on them.
Down this end, we've got some of the Nissan huts that are remaining on the site. There's about 8 that we've got left that I've counted so far.
Did a bit tight down the path, isn't it? No, I'm just saying overgrowth wise. No, that was not. I did it your weight.
Because everybody used to get in,
Yeah.
tree to get in there. So we had to build another bit and they don't bother getting in that anymore. This is the best shot you're going to get at the back of the hole from this position. Till we clear away. Samuel was telling me about how when you were little you wanted to take kids. And you wanted to have a family, right? And she says, oh, you've got 6 now, so when everybody gets married, when you all get married, you'll have to 10. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So this would have been how it would have looked without all the overgrowth then. This wide.
This what?
This would have been how the grass had all looked inside, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Back there.
All
So that
grass.
gives you an idea of the depth of it.
We just all been grass.
No, I was asking, is that what it was like, or had it been? Thing?
Oh, I saw the ramp and wondered why it was there, but that's the cinema stroke theatre, and we're going to go in there when we come back around the other side. But that ramp they used to wheel some of the patients in their hospital beds to come to the cinema.
Oh.
That's the kind of place it is, you know? That kind of place it used to be.
Gives you an idea of width of the road now, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, fucking nice today.
Yeah, very big. Yeah, but obviously Fenton, they've started pulling it all, like big overgrowth down, haven't they? From what I've heard, they've been in there with forestry machines as well.
I was there the other day, yesterday.
So this is the first of the
Oh, you went back then?
This one was
No,
used
what?
as a
No,
campus
drove
church.
past.
So these are the ones that were left over from the Second World War that the Americans built. So we know that one, at least as early as 1954, was used. We're going to go in this one that's here. In the 1970s, the rise of these bits. And those bags are full of body parts of all the people that have broken into the site and recorded. No, that doesn't happen. And I was in trouble in the mud off the road. I've lost it more with body parts than probably more interested.
Keep less trespassers out.
Yeah, they all get buried in a secret place.
Plenty of holes.
Contact man.
Oh, it says you probably would have had one. Oh.
So of course this kind of a shape they used in the war because from the air they were difficult to see. You could see a building that was square or rectangle, but a building that's round like this.
It merged in with the
vegetation
surround,
and everything.
yeah.
So all the Nissan huts on this site had the asbestos roof on them. This one's really well intact. Of course they used the asbestos material in the walls as well. So wherever there's a hole, don't poke your finger.
Don't break it.
It's amazing how they made it in sections to build it together, though, isn't it?
This part here, the plate, that would be covered a hole where the flue went from the potbelly stove that used to heat them in those days. And there would have been one that side as well. But over time they put a vent there. So there would have been potbelly stoves heating both sides. They would have used these for sleeping, to eat in, the hospital beds are in here. You know, these were the buildings originally that were put on the site.
Yeah.
And as they replaced them with the more modern buildings, for whatever reason, they left the handful that they did. But this one's not a bad nick considering it's been here for about 76 years, isn't it?
So is the others in very bad shape?
Sorry?
Are the other ones in very bad shape?
The ones that have got the windows tend to be the ones that, the windows in the sides there tend to be the ones that get damaged a bit more. Because as people are throwing things to smash the glass, they hit the roof as well, which is asbestos. So, but this one is a good one to have a look at. It's a good example of the workmanship from that time period. The door would have been the same size as the door that way, but they've enlarged it over time. And it's got an intact pane of glass above there still. Which on a site that's heavily vandalised, it's pretty good going, isn't it? Maybe the slight bit of damage just on the edge there, but really everything is so intact. If there's two different types, you've got the asbestos roof ones and the steel roof ones.
Yeah.
If it had been the steel roof ones, they would have rusted out ages ago. Yeah. the MT section, which is the motor transport. So the fire engine, the trucks, the cars, all things like that would be kept here. They had their own fuel pump, so they didn't really have to go anywhere for it. It was all done here. They maintain the vehicles here. There's a loading ramp. You can just see, just as you look up, you can see the covered in moss going up there. That's a loading ramp. We tend to stay this side though and not go all the way over there because it's the back of the care home. So they start hearing lots of noises. They have dementia in the home there, so it's just out of respect stay this side. We've only got 2 collapsed buildings on this side. One of them is the naffy. So this is where the naffy stood. The naffy is the shop. So they can buy the bread and sweets and whatever, toilet paper. So that was a flat roof. And flat roofs tend to have a lot of wood in them, don't they? And they're the ones that tend to deteriorate faster. So
It's woody wool, aren't it?
yeah.
What's
So-
the little building at the back then? Is that part of it?
Yeah, so this is the shop part of the naffy, and this part of the naffy is the storage part. So they would store the big tins of baked beans that they would take over to the main kitchens and things like that. So you've got the stores at the front here, and at the back there was accommodation for those that worked there. The houses you can see through there with the old marriage quarters. So remember, there was no fence, no gate. It was all open. They wouldn't have had hedges in front of those. They were all just grass. Everything was plain, wasn't it? All grass and really kept pristine. People weren't there long, were they? They would have 3-year posting. There's trip hazard there. This is the back end of the club. So this section, you had the naffy, and then this section was the airmen's club. So this is where the bar was, and this is where their entertainment was. So they had their discos here and functions and everything. On this camp, they called it the Winged Serpent Club, the Winged Serpent Club, because there was a school of nursing here. So these Air Force nurses, on the cap badge, there was a serpent with wings. So they called it the Winged Serpent Club. And it was predominantly a female camp because of the nursing school. So the men at Waddington came over here because there's loads of nurses. So we're going to go inside the Winged Serpent Club. The entrance is this way. The rooms at the back were just where the manager, her accommodation, the kitchens, and where they stored the alcohol and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to go in the club.
So these was originally the houses that
the
they
married.
lived in?
Yeah. So those that were married and their families, this is where they lived. So
Do you remember when we went to Fenton and there was all the old houses outside? This is basically what theirs is.
Yeah, but they're new builds.
No.
They're not?
No, they're not.
Well, look at the new
1940s?
Yeah.
Renovated.
1940s, 1950s kind of thing.
Oh, they look really new.
To me, they look typically Air Force. Social housing. But you can see they've got hedges at the front now, and it wouldn't have been the case. They would have had a path going up to the door, and it just would have been grass. Grass and paths and everything like that. And there's also, you've got this row of terrace, so you'd have terrace houses that 2 or 3 bedrooms. You had flats that were 1-bedroom flats as well, so block of flats as first and second floor. And then as you go around the other side, that's when they had the semi-detached and detached as well. So you'd get officer accommodation there and things like that. It depends on your rank as to what you got. So in front of these 2 parts of the building, there used to be a sign, a really nice sign that they had. This picture was taken in the 70s. So you had this metal sign there, and it said the Winged Serpent Club. See how the windows used to be?
Yeah.
On that side. This is more of a prefab on this side, and on that side is more of that's the brick, and that's the kind of prefab style, isn't it? So we're going to have a look in. The bar's still there. It's a bit of a mess in there, but because of how they stripped it. So look at that. That's thrown in there and come out the top and bent around as it's grown up. Amazing. Nature's amazing. That was the snooker room. So the snooker table was in there. The room next to the snooker room was the TV room, because we are talking about the time period where there wasn't anything more than 3 channels. And
There's a tree growing in there, did you know?
oh, is there a tree growing in there as well?
Yeah, it's all up on the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
No, I want that one.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
oh,
grown
the little
out.
one there, yeah.
It's actually come through the ground.
So not noticed that before.
It's amazing how we take over half the place, then they take it back.
Yeah. So TV room, snooker room, and then it's through this way that you get to the main function rooms and the bar.
What's that?
No.
It's amazing, isn't it? If you look at the light switches, they haven't really changed since compared with now. So you eat your 30 minute.
They're all squadron stickers. It's a game that they still play today. It's called Zapping. So if you're visiting another squadron's camp, the game was to get your sticker in their clubhouse without being seen. So that's what's left over from that. Yeah. And so a lot of those are squadron stickers.
I know you used to have the same with the army, didn't you?
Yeah,
Where the
the
army
army
was
did the same.
determined to try and get it in the RAF bases and vice versa.
Yeah.
The tour guide has just said to us that these stickers used to have a little game. So if he was visiting here, he was in the airport and he visited here, he had to get your stickers on the wall without being seen.
Called zapping.
So it's called what?
Zapping.
It's called zapping, which is basically you stick a hide and seek. So let's get on with and explore the rest of this place.
The army used to do the same, Carl. Army used to do it as RAF and vice versa, and everywhere. They're still, like she says, they're still doing it now.
Very similar to the RAF base. Some fruits, that's in there.
I don't know, I feel it's a bit lighter atmosphere in here.
But I know there was more coming around here as well. There was quite a few. And then all these blocks here, that was Sergeant accommodation. These 4 blocks were the Emma's accommodation. These 2 blocks were the female accommodation. Right. And they housed single, they housed about 80. So,
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to know how many people was actually based here at a time.
yeah, I'll need to find out that. But this has its own beauty. It's got the original asbestos roof, so this is one of the few buildings left with the original roofs on.
Yeah.
And as they've stripped it, it's revealed the stones, I think. It's revealed the bones of the building, hasn't it? You wouldn't have seen any of this. You would have had these.
Yeah, you'd have to see them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but look at the condition of that. That's been standing here since the late 40s, early 50s. It's really condition considering the brilliant condition.
So standing after 40 or 50 years.
Well, the window frames were still in there for about 13 years after it was sold out to the hands of the MOD. It's only been in the last 12 years that they've been taken, that they're gone. it's raining, wind comes in that direction. So if it's raining, it's not getting in here, is it?
No, I'll be over.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I love that everywhere we've gone to RAF base, they always use the same shields to partition it.
Yep.
Although these ones actually, by the look of it, still would work.
They do glide, look.
Got lights fixed to them ones.
They're still gliding.
They've still got lights fixed.
Yep. But the interesting thing is, those power lights were there, look.
Yeah.
But, so that's similar to these, isn't it? But they
Yeah.
came off the ceiling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it'd have been a case of they'd used everything and anything we could not want nailed down to light it up.
Yeah.
I'd have loved to have fetched my grand that day before he passed.
Was that not safe?
Was he Air Force?
RAF, based down at Ripon,
You can try it.
down London, everywhere.
Yeah.
And then my grandma was Land Army,
Do you want me to stand there?
and that's how they met. That's how they got married. And then my granddad passed away a couple of years ago, and out the attic, which no one knew, is RAF uniform. No one knew it was still there.
Oh wow, you better treasure that.
One of the reasons why we went to Church Fenton is because he was originally at one point based there as well.
See, my parents met at RAF Swindon.
Careful in the time where we so pushing it for time.
I'll be 1 second. We wanted back. I didn't realise it.
What it used to look.
I didn't even realise what this lot was back down here.
Yeah, it goes on that way and that way.
Yeah.
Just imagine how the place used to look.
Apparently, next part we're heading to is hospital. Yeah.
I'd like to see what it's like when it's in use on the inside.
That's amazing how far back it's
And that's what I said. Right, we'll be on schedule, so we need to crack on.
That was just me stepping down on what tiles.
Matt breaking something.
Something smells nice. Smell it, can't you?
I'd have loved to have been down here when it was open and it was all cut down.
Now that building behind there was where the firemen, they used that building, but the floor's gone in there now. This one is the squash court. Now the floor is rotting out, but you can go and step on the top step and look in and take video or pictures, whatever, but don't go any further because you'll see what I mean.
Yeah,
when you
that's
get
fine.
there.
But we'll go first, and you two go afterwards.
Oh, I'll go then, we can go.
It's just that the floor's not sound at all.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. We was alright to go back there, weren't we? Yeah, sorry. I
I
didn't
thought,
want
as
to.
soon as you went behind, I thought, oh, they've discovered this.
Exact words will be a while.
Difficulty is, you get people that are exploring, that's fine, but I don't normally take people back there because if we went in every little nuts and cranny of each, we'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's time. It's trying to keep within that time, and we probably won't finish till 9:30
That's
tonight.
fine. Our kids getting looked after, anyway.
Got a
Same.
babysitter.
Same.
Sorry. Since I started doing videos and haunted stuff, I really wanted to get in here. Now it's pretty much a dream come true for me.
I mean, well, you're in.
Yeah, I know.
And you're
Bar in
lucky
the
you're
hall.
in
I know.
because
I can't get in the hall.
I know.
hopefully we'll be back up and running again in 3 or 4 weeks. I'm hoping.
If you want
From
to
now.
see
He wants to go first, he said.
Go together, we'll be out.
But right from the beginning, I said it's limited because we weren't sure on how long we'd be able to keep it going.
Yeah.
The owners would like it, like because they need an income to be able to afford to do that. I've had people that have been in for a full time, and I've got people booked in for a second time. Hoping they're a bit later out. I'm trying to do it so that those that are in the next 2 or 3 weeks definitely are going to have to reschedule.
Yeah.
But after that, I might be able to resume. So, I mean, I do 12 tours a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people I've got to reschedule. There's about 70.
Especially at 6 at a
60
time.
60 or 70, I know. 5 or 6 a time is a full
So
tour.
if you're doing it to make money to do the place, why is it so cheap?
What, 20 quid a person?
Yeah.
It is cheap, isn't it? Some people complain that it isn't. Not some people, I mean locals, as it were. 20 quid is a lot of money, and it's like, it's actually cheap.
Yeah, it's really cheap. It's like the most haunted house in Pontefract or something. We inquired about going there. That was like £400 for the night.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, we'll
No,
go.
20 quid a person. Originally it was like 5 on a tour, so that's £100 per tour if it's full, you know. And the owners get half, I get half, type thing. But it's a fundraiser for us, for the water tower. We're going to put a stained glass window in there to commemorate those that served here.
Yeah.
And to be able to restore the original features on there.
Yeah.
So they're like just the little extras that can't really take on a building like that.
Yeah.
Well, the stained glass window is an extra altogether, and I'd already set a GoFundMe page to help with that. But this is better because people are getting something for the money rather than just donating.
I still think you should put the price of it.
Why is that? Do you want to come
I
back?
told you the idea of £25 per person, but I...
No, she was saying it's for fundraising to try and increase, clear up the, make it a bit more accessible.
From what other places are charging compared to what you're charging, I think it's pretty cheap.
It's extremely cheap.
This is the medical centre. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because it's hard to know when you price things. But I know somebody says they would have paid 50 quid to come here. I couldn't bring myself to charge somebody 50 quid. I want everybody to get the opportunity.
Yeah.
And everybody can afford different, can't
Yeah.
they? So I think £20. My husband says just make it 20 because that's a £20 note.
Yeah.
You know, you're not messing with change or somebody
Yeah.
giving you 30 and you've got to give them 5 back because it's 20. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I think 20 is reasonable.
Yeah.
I just want people. I want as many people in here to record it,
Yeah.
to get those photos and to experience it. I think it's a fair price, and people will come back.
Yeah.
So, medical centre is the equivalent to our GP. So they would have gone to see the dentist in there and the doctor in there, and that's got the original roof. So that's what it would have looked like. All these buildings, they would have looked just like that. So now they've got the metal.
Yeah.
I've never been in there, but I know it's one of the ones that we cleared because you can see the lead.
Yeah.
So once all these leaves are gone, I'm going to see if I can get in there and if it's worth cutting this back to give people a chance to look in. And I've got time to do it now from next week. This is the cinema stroke theatre. Now in the early days, in the 60s, people remember doing pantomimes in here and everything.
Yeah.
Those in the 70s that served here remember more of going there to see a film as opposed to theatre kind of production. But this is kind of a bit nostalgic, kind of with here and going up the steps. So the steps are sound, you can go up there and have a look in.
Is that why they then did the other one with the ramp?
They had the ramp on the other side so they can bring the hospital beds in.
That's what it's the same building.
It used to have a stage at the far end. I don't know at what point they took it out. I don't know if it was just something they took out, whether it was stripped by somebody or whether it was intentional. I don't know. What's that?
Glass stuck in the door here.
So the chairs would have been this end. There would have been an aisle down the middle. In the middle of the aisle they had a table where they stood the projector to shine it onto the screen that would have come down where this blanket is here. And the stage was here at some point. And the funny thing about the stage is they said to go to the toilet, you had to go onto the stage to get to the toilet. And so, if you were desperate for the toilet, it was embarrassing because everybody used to heckle you if you went on the stage.
So is this what these two little black bars are for holding the extra screen then?
Yeah, I think so. That's what I've been told.
That went toward the white screen then.
Yeah. So when you think about it, when it goes from there to there, it was a fair old size screen.
What? I think it might have been here that the screen came down, unless that was, I don't know, I think it came down through here, and this is probably to do with light rigging. See here, look. This was for hanging the stage lights.
I'd have loved to have seen a picture of it inside.
Yeah, I've never seen
Yeah,
a picture. The only picture I've seen is a picture of people standing on the stage when they did a pantomime, but you can't see the stage, you only just see tiny curtains.
Yeah.
It's just the people as opposed to, and it's like, I want to see the surroundings. So I am trying to get people to...
It definitely would have been nice to have seen it with the projector screen on and see how it would have been set up inside here.
But I know I took around, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was him or a daughter of the guy, but I think it was the daughter, and she said my father used to run the cinema, and they used to bring the beds down into, you know, some of them, not all of the beds, obviously. They must have had maybe some long-term patients.
Yeah.
Some people have been here for a while. It's getting dark.
It is. Getting
And
exciting.
we're going to go in the hospital after this.
Oh, come on, boys, let's go.
Sorry, I'm getting dark. I'm still in my hands.
This set. This is the visitors' car park. Because the entrance to the hospital is just down that way.
Mind your
So
step,
in that
it's
way,
fairly deep.
we are actually going to enter the hospital at the far end of the hospital where the surgical end was. Because it's that end, that is the end of the corridor. So you need to walk down the whole length of that corridor, which measures just over a quarter of a mile long. Wow. And it's pretty impressive from this end.
Yeah.
It's a shame to miss that. I always think it's good to get your first look at that corridor right from the very end.
Yeah.
And when you look down, you can't see the end of it because it still goes further.
Wow.
So the reason why this road is uncovered and clear is because this is the route that Anglian Water takes to get to the sewage works at the very bottom. These houses are new builds. These were built 3 or 4 years ago. They were built on the playing field behind the married quarters. So the flats, you have the row of terrace flats in the middle. More on the other, more houses on the other side, and then you have the big playing field here. So when we just rented privately for just over a year when we moved back into the country from New Zealand. And remember the playing field being here. So we were back there, we went up there.
Starting to get dark, and all the lights starting to drop, isn't it?
You say your light's down funny? You say your light's starting to go funny? Ah.
So we're going to enter this part of the hospital.
Right guys, now we're in there now, entering the whole hospital, the old hospital.
Come on.
I'm coming.
We're running low on time.
I was just taking pictures of the corridor.
So I always ask people when they come in here, is I want them to guess what they think went on in this part of the hospital. This part, I have seen this for years and years and years, and I've always wondered what went on in here. And then a gentleman on the first week of the tours came on one of the tours and he worked in here.
Is it lap?
I could have pissed him. It's not a lab, no. I'm going to save my
Linen room?
I'm going to save my battery because your lights are big enough.
Was it a linen room or something?
A what room?
Linen washroom?
No.
No.
I'd say there's a classroom there.
Nope. Closed behind these walls.
Lab test.
Not lab test.
Oh,
X-ray room.
No.
Surgery.
A what?
Surgery.
theatre.
Surgery? No. The theatres are behind the walls behind us.
Don't tell me that was an entranceway.
Don't tell what?
Entrance. Was it the main entrance or?
No, the entrance to the hospital is further down.
Morgue.
Not the morgue, as people always say morgue. They say laboratory, they say morgue, then they say kitchens.
I do love like the kitchen.
Have you heard of the term autoclave?
No.
Autoclave is the process of sterilisation through steam. This is the Sterilization Department. This is where they sterilise all the equipment that they use in the hospital, like the scalpels and needles and things like that. Because this was the days before they used to throw everything away and burn it, medical waste and all that. So the needles back then were glass vinyl things, weren't they? And they used to sharpen the needles here. So it was that side where they created the steam, and it was all clean and sterile. And then on these benches here, they'll have the trays and fill the trays up, getting ready to go back out to the wards and the operating theatres. So it's a sterilisation
I don't
department.
turn it off if I was doing that.
So it would have been a sterile area.
I was going to see it.
But this room has always fascinated me because it's still got a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, I would have, coming into it, I would have thought it was lab.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it must have been some kind of lab or something.
Specimen lab.
But it isn't. This is the sterilisation. Here you put in your tissue person.
Do you want to write your name? Kirsty is.
What gets me is, look, you've got dates on there, 2017. 3 years it stayed there untouched.
Let me guess, you're dating it here.
Yeah, Kirsty 2020. Right, come on people. You come in. Look how lovely the floor is. Look.
Yeah, isn't that great?
I didn't mind you in the hospital just looking at that.
The old style marble,
Sometimes you can smell the hospital.
marble
That's what I was just
floors.
thinking, then I was like sniffing up and I thought I could smell it, but I just didn't know if it was me going crazy.
No, every now and then I get a whiff of it. There was one toilet that was really strong.
Has he got lost?
No, he's following behind. He's putting his mark as well. So is it the corridor with the grey lady?
No, not this one.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, we started at high vegetation by the looks of it.
Are you recording?
Yes.
Okay, make sure this bit gets edited out.
Yeah, that's
Edit
fine.
this bit out.
Or just pause it.
Okay. I'll edit it out, so it's fine.
This cold's going to come on. You would be brought into this room because this room is where the anaesthetists would be waiting. And they will be putting you to sleep and preparing you to go into this room, which is the operating theatre. So, we know this is the operating theatre because for a start there are no windows.
Yeah.
No windows to the outside because that is a way of introducing pathogens, isn't it? So you're trying to reduce the amount of infection that you can get. And you're right that there would have had a light, and that's where they would have viewed any x-rays that they needed. Of course, you've got all your control panels and everything. You've got the vents going out, taking the air out. That one there is bringing the air in. Notton is built on a single story. There are no upper floors, but in this building there is an upper floor because that's where all the air vents are, and they can get up there to maintain them and make sure that the air is sterile that's coming in. So all this, you've got all the gubbins and everything that go with an operating theatre. Lots of lights. All these markings on there would have been where the lights are. Those metal things standing up against the wall there, that's what the lights were like. And the floor, look at this. Absolutely beautiful floor. Really smooth, easy to keep clean. Goes up there too. Why would they have painted in here though? I would have thought they would have kept it a bit more clean. But anyways, so operating theatre. That one there with the window, nurse's station. And this side, you can see where the sinks and everything would have been, where they would have scrubbed up, the surgeon would have scrubbed up in there. And then the room opposite, the one with the eye in it, did you see the ICU eye?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Recovery.
Ah.
Okay, so whenever there is a operating theatre, there's always lots of rooms associated with that one theatre.
Yeah.
And in 1962, if you remember at the beginning, I said twin operating theatres were added to the site.
Yeah.
And these are those twin operating theatres. Isn't it great? Love it. When I first came here, I had no clue. But I had a gentleman who worked in the Air Force, currently serving the Air Force, is in East. And he said, let me walk you through. Alright, so we'll just wait for that. This is my most favourite room of the whole property.
It's dark under there. You catch yourself.
Looks nice and clean here compared to what we've just seen. But we entered this room. This bathroom, window. Hazard a guess as to what this is. You might do it.
Would it be a ward?
It's not a ward as such. The morgue. It's not a morgue.
Morgues, they'll have a frigging have a sink in the middle where the blood will run in.
Our morgue is a separate building to the hospital, and the slab is still there, but very much smashed up. But there is enough evidence there to see where it had stood. So when we get there, I'll go into it. The clue to this room are those pipes hanging down from the ceiling. There's 4 of them. There aren't any missing because if you look at where the sockets are, there's a group of 4, group of 4, group of 4, group of 4. There's 4 airs at the bottom there.
Is it ICU?
It is ICU. But look up in the ceiling. In the rafters. What kind of time period do you think that is? Does that look like 1962?
Well, ventilation.
The rafters as well. That's new, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
That is at least 1980s. Now, if you go and walk over to that white pipe, that yellow pipeline there, there's a date inscribed on the left.
Ah, 89.
1989. Who was here in 1989?
Oh my God.
When did the RAF leave?
It was.
The RAF left in 83. They closed the hospital in 83. The Americans were here in 80s. This is an add-on that the Americans built. They built this room. Those pipelines are suction pipelines, and suction pipelines are used in operating theatres, recovery, and ICU. So we believe, from the power of deduction, that this was built by the Americans in preparation for those casualties that were going to come from the Gulf, the Gulf War, which never really came. Nightingale hospitals that the government built for the COVID cases.
Yeah, they're fine used.
So they didn't really get used, did they? But they didn't know that, so it was not ready. So whether it was built in 89 or whether they built it in 90, I don't know, but it wouldn't have been, well, that part, I don't know, that suction pipeline says 89, so all this up here indicates, points everything to no earlier So,
See, the pipe could have been manufactured in 89, it could have been a few years down the line.
yeah.
Whoa!
Would have been nice to have seen his heyday, wouldn't
Oh
it?
yeah.
With the blue tiles and the blue, well, the white windows on the inside, blue on the outside.
Tell me we're walking down there.
We are.
Yeah.
So is this where the grill is meant to be seen?
Not this section, but the section beyond it, yeah.
Right, but it's down this corridor.
Yeah, this is the central corridor.
I'm trying not to blind everyone with the light.
So, are you ready to walk down here now?
I am.
Let's go. So, we have a window. We have another window. We have another window. It gets exciting. And another one, look.
It's one of them typical hospital corridors, isn't it? That seems to go on for never ending.
That is one of the wards. That is Ward 9, and that one is Ward 7.
This corridor.
Okay. There's
Stretching on
13 wards
as far
here.
as any of us can see.
Numbers
Stretching
1
on like that.
to 14, but there wasn't a
Quarter mile.
13.
Quarter
So
mile.
there's 13 wards.
Down the bottom mile, apparently.
And that was another window we went past.
More than any of us can see.
Blue tiles would have been on the floor with a white strip along, a white strip of tiles down that side and that side. And if you look out here, you will see a cluster of 3 windows still intact. Okay, and that gives us an idea of how it looked. They were painted blue. Is that better? They were painted blue, single pane, and all the buildings were painted white. And on the roof was that asbestos style, you know, that the style that you saw on the on the medical centre building. And out of this window, you see a few more closer up with the blue faces. But it really helps you to visualise, I think, what it would have looked like. We painted them white on the inside and we painted them blue on the outside. Another window, lots of windows here, and the door frames were metal and wooden doors painted blue on the outside again. And then we come to this marvellous junction that we quite often see that at this time of night. This junction reveals quite a bit.
The slide.
I like that. No. No, what we like, babe?
I don't know if it was bright or not.
Oh,
That's as bright as it, darling.
there we go, thank you.
So, down the bottom end there is the X-ray department.
Okay.
You've also got wards 10, which is the children's ward, ward 9, which is gynecology, and ward 11, which is the screaming ward, the maternity delivery. Okay.
And apparently that was hell.
And this plaster has come away and it has revealed one of the original signs.
Yeah.
So that was underneath the plaster. The dental department we know was added in 1954. But because that's written above the box, it makes you wonder if that was added at a later date or whether all this sign was put together at the same time. So I don't know. If that was added at a later date, that would have been added in 1954, and then the rest of the sign would then be pre-1954. And that would have said dispensary, and that's antenatal and gynecology clinics, royal clinic. We're also introduced to a girl called Jenny. Jenny gets everywhere. Somebody must have loved Jenny because Jenny is sprayed everywhere. And you'll see Jenny, so look out for Jenny as we're going around. Over your heads on the doorway you came through, it says surgery. And then we've got the stripes, the black stripe with the American stencil. And the Americans did that. Americans did all this. They're the ones that painted the stripes on the walls. Okay, it wasn't here when the British were here. This is the central corridor. And this is the main corridor that runs from the entrance, which is up there, entrance into the hospital, main entrance, and all the wards are off this corridor. But there is a parallel corridor to that side, just down there. That's where the grey lady was seen coming out and everything, and you've got another ward off that. So, but most of them are off this ward. There's only just one off the other one. So we're going to head up to the top and we'll work our way down.
Lovely bit of the wall.
And you look out the windows between these wards that we're passing, you will see apple trees. There are different varieties of apple trees planted between the walls because somebody commanded it to be so and so it is so. That there leads to a public telephone box. You'll see an apple tree, yep, there's an apple tree. Oh yeah, there's apples I think. More apples through there.
Oh God, no.
This part you're very good. I'm not getting very good.
You do as a fairy tale. Pull your trousers up.
I can't see down the corridor very well.
Rather skitsy. Apple tree there.
They don't like it, like me better.
Testing.
Don't know.
Yes, is on top.
That's strange.
Especially in the middle. Whoa.
Oh, they're not even eating
Yeah.
apples, they're called
Test.
apples.
Gone straight to red.
Yeah, no.
Not there.
Really care to meet her. We're going to have a look in one of the wards when we head back down.
A lot clearer down this bit, isn't it?
Right. So here's the main entrance. You would come through here, and that's the reception. That would have had a wall in front here, and there would have been a cubby hole to talk to, you know, big hole there. So you speak to the receptionist. If you were here for outpatients, this is the outpatients over here. It goes around the corner, and you've got another length of that around the corner, okay? Heading, so it goes round to the right, round to the left, and you've got another length of that. These are all the various different clinics that they had, like antenatal, and whatever it was. We did have a gentleman on the tour. He had a vasectomy here, and he, for the life of him, couldn't remember until we got to this spot and started going down there. And he went into that room at the end there, and he went, "This is it. This is where," and it all came back. So that was an interesting story, and he did say I could share his story. So down this end was the ophthalmic clinic, so the eye clinic, waiting area. So there's like a bit of a waiting room, and also some offices where they kept the medical records and things like that. Staff rooms, various bits and bobs. So mainly, so you've got some clinics down there, but mainly, which was male surgical. Okay, and opposite Wall Street is and I'm going to talk you through what a typical ward here would be like. So when we enter through these doors, we are entering the ward. As you can see, there are several rooms before you get to the main dormitory. So this is the same layout in all the wards, except for there's a couple of variations with maternity and maternity delivery for obvious reasons, and I'll talk about that later. So you have a ward kitchen. So this was the ward kitchen. That was the kitchen. Okay. Opposite the ward kitchen is a treatment room. So if you're having your stitches out, there you go. Or they needed to shave you for your operation, there you go. Okay. Then there's always a linen cupboard. So there's your linen room. The shelves are collapsed down there, but it was a linen room. And then there was a room for the nurses to have a bit of a break, and they have wicker chairs, and they would sit and have a little bit of a break away from all the patients. Next to there is the sluice room, where you get to clean out and empty all those dead pans. Okay, so there's the sluice room with the toilet. There's always a side ward, and there's two of them, and they have a shared toilet and bathroom facility there. This is the first ward, and then that one here is the second ward. There's a wall divided between the two, and you would be in there if you weren't doing too good. Okay, so you have a bit more privacy. So opposite there, you've got toilets, 3 toilets with a sink. And then you have 2 bathrooms, so there's 1, 2, there's your bathrooms. And then this last room was the sister's office. And the sister always at her office had a window facing the main dormitory part of the wall. So there's her window. This part, and here was the nurse's station. So you have the nurse's station at this end. And then we have these panels. So that's one intact. This is why I like bringing people in this one, because it's an intact panel. Each one of these panels